Good afternoon and welcome to the Boise Metro Chamber's Metro Minute series, your quick guide to business impact. My name is Tori Thomas, Community and Government Affairs Manager here at the Chamber and your host for today's event. The Boise Metro Chamber is Idaho's only 5-star accredited chamber and represents nearly 2,000 members. We are only able to provide current events and educational content because of our members and their investment in our community. Before I introduce our speaker for today, I want to thank Holly Troxel for their generous support. Please enjoy this quick video from our sponsor.
I'm Tom Mortel, co-managing partner of Holly Troxel. Our firm is proud to be the sponsor of the Boise Metro Chamber's Metro Minute. In the 6 communities we serve throughout Idaho and Eastern Washington, we have the pleasure of providing legal services to great companies, large and small. Similar to the Chamber, we represent companies from Main Street businesses to some of the largest corporations in our area. We appreciate the opportunity to advocate on their behalf as a part of the Chamber's advocacy program and to further the Chamber's efforts to advocate on behalf of its members. Welcome to the Metro Minute. Please enjoy today's presentation.
Awesome. Well, for today's event, we are joined by Bre Brush. Hi, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'll do a quick bio for our viewers and then we'll get going.
Okay.
Bre Brush is the mayor's transportation advisor at City of Boise. Here she focuses on building partnerships and seeking opportunities to advance transportation solutions big and small. From e-scooters to the restoration of passenger rail, she's had the privilege of working on a diverse array of projects supporting our community. With a background in business advocacy and local governments in Idaho and Utah, she has managed citizen academies, developed policy agendas for business organizations, supported the development of Boise's Pathways Plan, and moved forward the city's work on transportation safety. She loves calling Idaho home and aspires to advocate for solutions to our most pressing community issues. Bre holds a bachelor's in economics from Boise State University and a master's in public administration from Arizona State University. Thanks for all you do for our city and community and for chatting with me today.
Yeah.
Alrighty, let's chat about transportation, everyone's favorite topic. So can you start with chatting about any key transportation projects that are underway in Boise and how they're addressing how much our city's been growing, especially the last few years?
Sure. So I think when everyone thinks about growth and the impact of growth on our community, the first thing they think about is traffic. And when we think about addressing traffic congestion at the City of Boise, there's really 3 main ways that you can go about that and tackle that issue. You can use what you have more efficiently. So you can upgrade your signals to have the latest technology to make sure all the vehicles get through the intersection and can sense when things are coming and when things need to shift. You can expand your capacity by widening the roadway, or you can reduce the demand for the roadway by offering other ways to get around that are not in your vehicle. For us, we have limited space to widen, and ACHD, the Ada County Highway District, already does a fantastic job at incorporating the latest technology into our signals. So we really want to focus on partnering with ACHD and the community on active transportation corridors. So if you want to get to school, the grocery store, library, work, whatever it is, you don't have to drive. A couple projects that we lead ourselves at the city to do that are within our Pathways program that you mentioned, Tori, in the bio. So the Pathways plan is 112 miles of pathway throughout the city, varying degrees of likelihood depending on the funding available. But the ones we have going right now that you can actually provide input for, and we can provide a link for afterward. The first one is the Broadway Federal Way connection. So this is a connection from Broadway up to the Federal Way Bikeway, kind of closing a gap where people and cyclists cannot get through today. And then the Tuttle Lateral, which is in a different part of town on the West Bench between Milwaukee and Cole. And then, of course, we want to work with our partners at Valley Regional Transit to continue investing in bus rapid transit. That's that 15-minute frequency that is available on 3 of our corridors, State, Vista, and Fairview.
Awesome. There's so much going on, and it's so exciting to see just all the work that you have put in, and also the thoughtfulness of all that goes into what our city needs, from the city, but also from ITD and ACHD and all the other amazing VRT. So, and I'm proud to be on a 15-minute corridor, and I utilize the bus a lot. And so I'm very grateful for that. Well, so obviously you have a lot going on, and you are continuously, trying to do what the next best thing is. So what are your transportation goals, or what's the city's transportation goals in the next 5-10 years?
Sure. I should have mentioned too in the last question on roadway projects and active transportation projects. ACHD has a really great platform called Engage, where you can go and provide your input on any of the projects that are happening in Ada County. And this Wednesday, they'll adopt their priority plan for the next 5 years. So make sure you can show up to that and talk about what projects you want to see and how quickly you want to see them and things like that. For the city's top transportation goals for the next 5 to 10 years, one of the things that the City Council adopted a few years ago was a resolution to commit to reducing serious and fatal injury crashes by 50% by 2030. So in 2020, we had 82 either fatalities or life-altering crashes on Boise roadways. So we want to commit to break that in half by 2030. And we do that by bringing together education on traffic safety, enforcement with partnership with our Boise Police Department, and engineering with Ada County Highway District, making sure our roadways are engineered to reinforce the safe driving, walking, biking environment people expect when they get to and from their daily needs. So that's one. Other would be rail. Obviously, passenger rail is a huge project and would be really transformational for our region. We're getting ready to seek another opportunity with the federal Railroad Administration to get some funding to further that. But in the interim, we're working with some of our partners up and down the line from Boise to Salt Lake to figure out how we can continue the momentum we built last year and really keep working toward making this dream a reality, because we know how essential it is for our community, whether it's tourism or business or just general livability and being able to access more destinations throughout the region. And then kind of the third prong of that, thinking about transportation goals as climate goals. Our climate goals at the city are bold. We want to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions and commit to carbon neutrality. And to do that, we need to make sure that we're investing in a development pattern that supports that, and making sure people do have the opportunity to be able to walk or bike to work and get out of their vehicle for at least one trip a week. So if you can think about a trip that you normally drive, maybe it's a grocery store that's not too far, can you take that by walking or by biking, or same if you're getting to the library or park or what have you?
Love that. I think that's very accessible. It's not, I don't feel like there's a lot of, shame added to that. It's not like, oh, get out of your car constantly. It's like very slowly but surely trying to encourage people. And my perspective is this somewhere that I can walk my dog? Because if it is, she will be very excited about that.
Yeah, exactly. People think about it as having to go all in, like get rid of your car. That is not reasonable for a lot of people, but there's probably one trip you make each week that you can either walk or bike.
And it's such a great reminder, because like I just mentioned, I have, from my own experience, I have the bus so easily accessible, and there's so many times during the week that I'm like, oh, I should take that. And then I don't plan ahead, or I don't, situate my week. And so it's such a great reminder to just say, okay, look at what your week looks like, and just slowly but surely start noticing where you can be, more aware of your carbon footprint. So I like those. Those are great. And, we obviously have been working with you guys on that rail the last few years. I think that's something that the chamber would love to see, but we also know that there's a lot of options. And so we're excited to see that still be a conversation, but we are happy to obviously be supportive of VRT, and excited to see all the options coming in the city's future. So, well, let's switch to a little bit of micromobility conversations. You all have a committee, a micromobility committee, and I'm happy to say that the chamber sits on that and always seems to have great conversations whenever we're a part of those meetings. Can you discuss what alternate roles or alternative transportation options like biking, walking, or the e-scooters or bikes play in the future planning?
Sure. So, as you know, and many in the community have probably noticed, we made a shift a couple of years ago in how we manage e-scooters within the city to have one provider. And so far, that has made it a lot easier to communicate, to partner with, and serve the public even better than the program was serving it before. Perfect example, there were some changes in the Bronco shuttle this season. So the Saturday home opener relied really heavily on Lime to get people to and from the site to their parking spot before and after the game. Saturday alone saw about 7,100 riders, which is pretty significant for one weekend, but I think it shows you those do provide some real value, especially in the downtown area. Number one, most important thing with that program is making sure that riders are safe when they are riding and they're leaving a clear and free space for everybody else to get by. Don't park your scooter in the middle of the sidewalk. Do not block ramps. Do not block ADA accessible buttons or anything like that. Don't block business corridors. I think that's the biggest challenge we have with those. But once we're able to mitigate those and continue working on those, we see ridership and this great value added to our community to provide another way for people to get around if they don't have their own bike or don't have their own device to ride. Boiseans drive, that's obviously a fact, but if Boiseans would like to drive with less traffic, then we have to create safe alternatives for people who do want to walk or bike to relieve that pressure on our roadway. Like I was saying earlier, we can't widen every road. It's costly, and sometimes we just don't have the space for it, space that could be used for businesses, agricultural use, or even housing. So we're really focused on making sure we have those safe, convenient, and reliable options. And micromobility is a piece of that. Building the safe infrastructure with ACHD is a piece of that. And then, of course, buses and Valley Regional Transit Partnership is another component of that as well.
That's awesome. That's crazy to hear that many riders were utilizing Lime this weekend. I think that's really cool, and it shows the exact reason why we have those. I think there is some negativity with the scooters, I think probably in every city, but I think when people are utilizing them for what they were meant to, for a spot to take them from A to B or finish their commute, I see a ton of people riding them in my neighborhood, usually right around 5 when they're getting off work. And there's such a great opportunity for people to just have somewhere to get home that they don't always just have to walk. So yeah, that's awesome. Well, let's chat a little bit about housing now. So this is obviously a really big conversation for the city. Can you share some ideas that the city might have to connect affordable housing developments with reliable transportation options?
Sure. I think one of the biggest things we hear every year when we do our public hearing for Valley Regional Transit is we hear residents saying they want to be able to go to more places. Whether it's a resident here wanting to get to Meridian or Caldwell or Nampa for work, or folks from those cities trying to get into our city for their job, we hear that all the time. And that's because affordable housing and transportation are really tightly linked. If someone who works in Boise wants to also live in Boise but cannot find a home here and instead has to move further away, that only makes our traffic congestion worse. So we want to make sure people have the opportunities to live close to where they work. I think with some of the things we're doing in our new zoning code will really help, making it easier and incentivizing building near where infrastructure already exists, like our best-in-class bus lines that I mentioned earlier. Just trying to use those tools that we have available to encourage people to build where we can support it and where that density belongs, which is close to transportation corridors.
Awesome. Yeah, that definitely makes sense. It's nice to know that those conversations, it's great that VRT gets to be a part of those as well. And hopefully we continue to see a rise in trying to utilize the best space and access to that space as well. So, well, are there any barriers or challenges you foresee in Boise's transportation goals, like you've mentioned before? And how can the community get involved and be helpful to you, or even just, try to advocate for their community?
Yeah, I think the biggest barrier, whether it's for public transit or for roadway, is funding. I think most of us know that for transit, not having the ability to raise the funds required, Valley Regional Transit really struggles to provide the system that we deserve, that a community of our size deserves. Our system is at least a third of what comparable cities have, and that's a really big challenge, and it'll quickly become a workforce challenge if people can't get to and from their job in a timely manner. And that is the easiest way to address traffic congestion and take those vehicle trips off the streets. But even for roadway projects are getting more expensive. In the development pattern that we have, it's space is a premium. So if you are building a downtown project now, it's more expensive than it was a few years ago. And that applies to roadways as well. Roadway projects have gone up in cost. The tight labor market for all of the trades that go into construction have an impact there. But even in the long run, the funding that we have available to address roadways is insufficient. A few years ago, we can link this in the chat. Another chamber member, Idaho AGC, conducted a study of statewide transportation need and found a deficiency of a couple $100 million a year to be able to maintain the assets we have and grow to the level that we need to, even just for roadway. So I think in general, funding is going to be the biggest barrier to all of our transportation issues in the Valley.
Yeah, that's completely understandable. Like you mentioned, everything's just getting so much more expensive. I think that's why, you see developers maybe backing off in certain areas, or just kind of certain things changing, and maybe changing the resources that they have to make it happen. So that's obviously a huge issue, and hopefully we can find some support through that. If people can't provide funding, how can they get that message out? What do they do? Obviously, you've mentioned a few resources. Your guys' website is the best. And also your Instagram and social media is amazing. Everyone, you all do such a great job with that. But is there anything that folks can do just to get the word out of, people that, how can they find the funding?
Yeah, and I think I mentioned that ACHD Engage platform earlier. That's not necessarily dedicated to funding, but it is how ACHD plans to use their funds to support our growing community over the next 5 years. So definitely check that out. This Wednesday, they'll have a hearing to adopt their next 5-year work plan. So come make your voice known if you want your funding prioritized for a specific project or issue. That'll be really important. And then on the Valley Regional Transit side, I think staying connected with the chamber is obviously the best thing to do, because Tori and Bobby Joe and team will be the resource at the State House to make sure your needs as a business are represented as it comes to workforce development and workforce transportation issues.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much, Bre, for joining us today. I appreciate you and your knowledge and all that you do for our city. It's been great chatting with you, and yeah, thanks again. We appreciate you.
Thanks.
Awesome. Well, a huge thank you to our sponsor, Holly Troxel, along with our media partners, Idaho Capital Sun, Idaho Education News, and Idaho Press. Thanks so much for joining us, and we'll catch you on the next Metro Minute.